Well, guys, welcome this morning. We have some new folks joining us. I love this. I love this. We get together, excuse me, every weekday morning at this time. I've moved it off the YouTube platform. We're doing it live here for you guys. And then I just upload it later to social media so folks can check it out later if they want to. But this gives me a chance to interact with you guys, which I love and which I enjoy. So let's get rolling. Today, we're going to talk about why leads don't convert, lost leads. Do you ever wonder if sending out all those emails, all those direct emails is actually doing anything for you? Have you ever felt like you were wandering through the wilderness and it's like, I keep doing this, but what's going on? Is anybody reading these things? Is this thing going to pay off? And I think that's anybody who does direct marketing goes through those times. And if you haven't yet, you will. That's part of marketing. And that's why you need to make sure that you understand everything you can about it. And that's why I keep circling back around to this sales pipeline. And we've talked about leads and the need for leads. But today I want to talk about the management, I guess more of the management and the expectations of those leads. So when it comes to leads not converting, there's a couple of issues. One is you don't know what happens after you send out the emails. And I'm not speaking about those of you on VoFlow because you do know what's going on if they come to your website or if they go to your demos. But generally speaking, people don't know when they send them out. So they don't know if somebody's looking at the email. They don't know if somebody's responding to it by going to the website. They don't know if they're listening to their demos. It's like flying blind. It's like you're driving along in the sunshine and then you hit a tunnel with no lights and no headlights on your car. You're not sure exactly, you get disoriented because you're really not sure what's going on at all until hopefully you pop out in the sunlight. You survive the drive and are able to pop out into the sunlight on the other side. And you may literally be losing leads because you don't have a good system in place. Have you ever used one of these things to track your marketing with? I used to use okay, confession time. When I first started voiceover, I had a big yellow legal pad. I did all my work, like invoicing and tracking and all that stuff on a legal pad. And I know better than these things, but just kind of trying to figure out what was going on, didn't have a system in place. This is not a good marketing system, but that might be the way you're tracking things. So you may literally be losing information on leads and you think they're converting. Maybe they're converting, but again, you just don't know. So what I want to do is I want to share 3 stories with you to illustrate what happens during this process. Because I think if you understand how this works, it will help it, if nothing else, adjust your expectations. Because this is very much, and I've used this example all the time, it's very much like the parable of the sower. Our job as marketers is we sow seed as best we can. And sometimes it hits the right people and falls on the right ears. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people respond quickly. Sometimes it takes a long time for them to respond. Sometimes they never respond. But we can't get caught up in the outcome as much as we can, as we need to focus on the system and what we're doing. Because if we commit ourselves to the process, we focus on the process and have the right system, strangely enough, outcomes take care of themselves. But we got to stay focused on the process. So here's my first story. Number one, so I shared this with some of you guys in a meeting the other day. So if you've heard this before, forgive me, but it's true. These stories, I didn't make these up. These are true stories, and that they really illustrate the stuff that happens during this process on waiting for leads. Number one is a client that it took me 4 years to get a response from these folks. 4 years. So I persistently continued to reach out and wait and reach out and wait. After 4 years, I finally became a client. And it started with some relatively small jobs. But after I did the first job, they were very happy with it. And then they began very quickly giving me more jobs to where I was getting multiple jobs a week from this client. And they reached out to me and said, we really like your work. And we'd like to invite you to become what's the term they use? Was it a priority voiceover talent? But that's what it insinuated. It put me in a group of people that they would give more work to. But the agreement was if you do it at a lower rate. So you do higher volume, lower rate, because they knew they could count on you to do it and turn it around and all of that. So I said, yeah, sign me up. So I was getting regular work. And again, these were not big jobs, they were smaller jobs, but it became pretty nice income. And then one day out of the blue, I got a call from this client and said, "We've heard from Chevrolet, and they're selecting a new image voice, the Chevrolet Find New Roads voice, and they've narrowed it down to 4 people, and you're one of them." Which was a shock because I mean, I'd never been asked, I didn't audition, I didn't do anything. It's just they heard my demos and just out of nowhere, it's like, "Okay, will you read this audition?" And I had no expectation I'd win that audition, by the way. But but I would, yeah, I'll give it my best shot. I've got a 25% chance at least, winning the audition. Long story short, I got the job, and, I didn't even have to do a session for it. They just used the audition I sent them. It was only 4 words, "Chevrolet Find New Roads," and it paid multiple 5 figures for that. For that forward. Now, I'm not saying that to say that, "Oh, you're gonna make a bunch of money every time you do a voiceover." No, most of the jobs we do, they can vary in price, but the point is this: it took me 4 years to get that client, and then after that, it took more time after doing a lot of lower pay work until finally the big payday came. So again, you never know. All you can't commit to the outcome, you can only commit to the process. Here's another story. And this has happened to me a number of times where I'll do an email, reach out to some, group of people that I've contacted before or worked with before, but haven't heard from for ages, sometimes in years. But I'll stay in touch with them. And again, this is part of the marketing system and cultivating and nurturing leads. And this has happened to me a number of times where I'll get a response email saying, "I'm so glad you emailed me because I really liked what you did before for us, but I could not remember your name and I had no idea how to reach you." And thinking from our perspective, it's hard to imagine that somebody would actually forget our names or lose our contact information. But we're just one bit of business that they took care of maybe months ago or years ago. And, they don't remember these things. And that's why having that process in place is so important. You've got to stay in front of them. So sometimes that's how it works. You'll be on somebody's radar, maybe even doing the work for them, or maybe not, but at least you're on their radar. And then one day, all of a sudden, they need you because the time is right. We have no idea when the time is going to be that they will need us. And that's why we have to commit to the process of continually working the leads and cultivating the leads. Here's another one. Sometimes a lot of people will never respond to what we do. That's the nature of direct marketing. If it was that easy, everybody would do it. But it was a week ago, maybe I don't know, maybe it was a week and a half ago, but recently I got a job on the very first email I sent. And that, by the way, that's not the norm. Usually it takes a while. You have to cultivate leads. But this is another example of how it can work. I heard back immediately after a first email, and they said, "I really love your work. Would you be willing to do this commercial session for $3,000?" And so, you very coolly and calmly, like you do it every day, as if you do it every day, say, "Yeah, sure, I'd be glad to do that." It was for Goodwill of Kentucky. I have, didn't expect it. I would never expect that again, that's not the norm of how it happens, but it does happen that way sometimes. So my point is, when it comes, first of all, I have a system in place, right? That's why these people were exposed to my material, my demos, my website. That's how I got those jobs. That's how I was able to do that. But then, you've got to make sure that you've got a system in place to cultivate those leads, because reaching out to somebody once is not a marketing plan. It's not. And if you guys have done this at all, it is a numbers game. And you send out an email, never expect to hear back from those folks. And when you do, you're pleasantly surprised. But when you do that consistently, and I guess this brings me to the next thing, having a system in place where you do it consistently and are able to do it in volume, you cannot help but, what is it? A blind squirrel trips over an acorn occasionally. I mean, that's how I feel sometimes. It's like, okay, I didn't expect that to happen, but, okay, if you do it enough times consistently, you're going to have all kinds of stories to share with our group, because it does work, but you need a systematic way to do it. Also, not all leads are created equal. You've to increase your percentages and, to get jobs and have a higher closing rate, you need to have quality leads. I was talking to a friend last week who was buying some leads from somebody. It was hundreds of dollars a month for not a whole lot of leads. And after months, she said, didn't get a single response. Nothing happened over that period of time. So again, part of the system is not just doing the activities, but making sure that the raw materials that you're working with, and by raw materials, I'm talking about the leads, wanting to make sure they are high quality. And of course, that's what we work to assure with VoFlow. And again, you're creating your own stories, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of your experiences. But I want you to imagine what that would feel like to do every day consistently, when you know that I may not hear back from them today, I may not hear back tomorrow, I may not be hear back from them ever, but if I consistently reach out to a group of people every day, I will hear back and I will book work. And from those folks, I will get some repeat work. But again, it's just a matter of making sure you've got the system in place, you've got your high quality leads, and that you continually, and again, going back to the parable of the sower, every day you're throwing some seed out there. You just keep putting it out there. And if you do, you cannot help but be successful. You guys have been a very attentive group this morning. I think some of you are even taking notes. It looks like, and if not, it sure looks like it makes me feel good. Anyhow, any thoughts or questions? I know it's early in the week. I have no expectations that you guys are like on the edge of your seat waiting to engage. And yeah, Quasi, go ahead.
Hi everyone. Good morning. So I set up my email automation finally last weekend, and it's been amazing. You literally just put the contacts into your CRM, and then it auto sends them an email, and then based on what they do on your website, it sends them more emails. So if anybody's uncertain about that, I'd highly recommend it. It's been really good for me so far. I've gotten a couple of people check out my website, and yeah, so I'm optimistic. Good start to the week.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that report. There's nothing more exciting than actually knowing. I gave the example. I said, driving to a dark tunnel. You drive into it, you have no idea what's going on. And there's nothing more exciting than a light popping on and you actually see what's happening. But it's like you pulled back the curtain and like, oh, yeah, people are responding to my emails. They are visiting my website. They are listening to my demo. So and then can respond, accordingly. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Wayne, were you about to say something?
I do have an example of that happening just this morning.
Oh, please do
On
tell.
Friday, a client that I had prospect that I had sent a cold lead to, uh, actually, I think it was a cold lead went out on Thursday, but by Friday morning, she jumped back saying that she liked what she'd heard on my site. Can I send her, and it's just for a whiteboard company, a sample of an emergency medical information file? I had to go online and YouTube to find out what that was, so I just Googled those words, and
What
it's one
is
of
it?
those things where the video is playing and a person is announcing about all of the special things a doctor needs to know about the contraindications and problems here and there and what to watch for and how to change dosages, so it's technical for doctors using all sorts of words that you'd never hear.
Sure.
Glomerular is a good one. So, I had to hit that one, so what I did is I took down the transcript, took out all the unnecessary information out of the transcript and had a script, and I recorded one because I didn't have anything to give her. And so I did that on Saturday, Sunday. I uploaded that this morning to her through a Google Drive file. It's 7 minutes long. I wanted her to feel comfortable to be able to load it up. So I sent it to her on a 7-minute file through Google Drive. She must have been on her computer this morning because she hit it, boom. And she, in the background when I wasn't working, because the first thing I did after I sent that to her, the very next thing is I put it on the top of my samples in my website.
Yes. Yeah, your VoFlow website, love
Right.
that.
Right. And the instant I hit save that file, a window popped up in the corner that another hot lead was on my video watching that or listening to that immediately.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like it's like the tip of my rod went,
Yeah, 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 exactly. We got a
about
big
pulled me
one.
out of the boat.
Here it is.
About pulled me out of the so I thought, "Well, that was quite thrilling." And then I went back to the email, and the one I had sent the file through Google Drive, she called me up or she had sent me a letter saying, "Okay," because I asked her, "Is there a script you want me to do?" And she sent me a sample of the script to put me in their roster on the top. So I
Wow.
thought that was pretty
That's
thrilling.
amazing,
So
Wayne.
just saying,
Love
following the program with the connection points and all those kinds of things, seemed to work. I'm flying right now. I got some other things I
Yeah,
gotta do this morning, but, yeah, I'm
it
ready
should
ready to
be.
get right back in and start sending out more leads. So, we'll
That
see how
is
they go.
I so appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
exactly the way it's supposed to work.
Pretty telling, and my eyes were going,
Yeah.
So
Nothing like
anyway,
putting
it's
a
just
line in the water and having a big fish grab it right away and
well,
try to
I thought it was gonna pull me right out of the boat. So it's kind of exciting to see it, and I'm sure this time that and that lead came from one I had saved in Close a year ago when I was using
Mhm.
Close.com. So I had saved that a year ago and had not heard anything. But I said the instant I moved that into VoFlow, that original lead, boom, she was right on it because it had that connection point. It helped her understand that I was there and I was interested. I believe that's the difference. So
That
just
is
thought
the
I'd toss
secret
that out.
sauce, and for those of you who don't know, the connection point is when we do an initial lead, it's where we say something that lets them know that we've been on their website, that we've actually seen what they have, what they do. We might reference something that we saw or heard or and that that way they know you're not just some random person sending out mass emails and have no idea who they are. And that's really again, yeah, that is the secret sauce. Good stuff, Wade. Thanks.
And that whole process I just went through is why I was 9 minutes late getting in on this broadcast this morning because I was going
Well,
through all
you're
this stuff.
excused for anything like that, believe me.
Good excuse just to say it's exciting.
That's great. Well, that made my day. I love it. I'm inspired.